The rain fell as if the sky itself were mourning, heavy drops soaking the black earth where her father had just been lowered forever. The little girl stood apart from the crowd, her shoes too thin for the cold, her hands clenched tight as if holding on could somehow stop the world from breaking. She did not cry loudly or collapse in grief. Instead, her sorrow sat quietly in her chest, deep and aching, because somewhere inside she already sensed that losing her father was only the beginning of her pain. What happened after the funeral would change her life in ways no child should ever have to face. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us humanity still matters. Her name was Eliza, and she was only 9 years old when her world fell apart. Her father had been everything she knew as safety. He worked long hours repairing old machines, coming home with grease-stained hands and tired eyes, yet he never failed to smile when he saw her waiting by the window. Her mother had died years earlier, leaving behind a silence that never fully healed. When her father remarried, Eliza tried hard to believe that life would become whole again. But the new woman in their home carried a coldness that no smile could hide. The stepmother tolerated Eliza, nothing more, and after her father's sudden illness and death, that thin tolerance snapped like dry wood. The funeral ended quickly, people dispersing back into their lives, umbrellas closing, condolences fading into distance. Eliza followed her stepmother back to the small house they shared, each step feeling heavier than the last. Inside those walls, the air felt different, emptier, as if love had been removed along with her father's presence. The stepmother wasted no time. Grief did not soften her heart. She saw the child not as a responsibility, but as a burden, an unwanted reminder of a man now gone. By nightfall, Eliza's few belongings were placed into a worn backpack, and the door she once called home was shut behind her. The house lights went dark, and the world outside felt impossibly wide and unforgiving. Eliza stood on the porch for a long time, not fully understanding that she had been cast out. The rain returned, gentle but relentless, soaking her hair and clothes. She walked without direction, guided only by instinct and fear, until exhaustion forced her to curl up beneath the overhang of a closed bakery. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, and the ache in her chest grew sharper with every passing hour. She wondered how the world could continue when her father was gone, when no one remained to notice whether she was safe or alive. Morning came slowly, gray and indifferent. Eliza wandered the streets, avoiding the eyes of adults, afraid that someone might scold her for existing in the wrong place. She watched other children holding hands with parents, backpacks bouncing with laughter, and she felt like a ghost drifting through a life she no longer belonged to. Her shoes rubbed blisters into her heels, and her stomach twisted with hunger. She sat on a park bench, clutching her backpack like a lifeline, unsure whether she would be able to survive the day, let alone the future. Fate, however, often moves quietly before it reveals its purpose. Across town, a man arrived in a sleek black car, his presence unnoticed by most. He was a self-made millionaire, known for building an empire from nothing, but his wealth was not the reason he had returned to this small town. Years ago, when he was young, broke, and broken, a kind mechanic had offered him help without asking for anything in return. That mechanic was Eliza's father. The man had never forgotten the warmth of that generosity or the way it saved him during the darkest time of his life. News of the mechanic's death reached him unexpectedly, and guilt followed close behind, because gratitude delayed too long becomes regret. After the funeral, he remained, compelled by something he could not fully explain. As his car passed the park, his attention caught on a small, unmoving figure on a bench. There was a stillness about the child that felt wrong, a loneliness that radiated silently. He asked the driver to stop. When he approached, he saw a girl far too young to be alone, her eyes dulled by exhaustion, her clothes damp and worn. Something tightened in his chest, a memory stirring of his own childhood struggles, of nights when kindness came from strangers instead of family. Eliza looked up, fear flashing briefly in her eyes, but she did not run. She was too tired to be afraid anymore. The man did not speak harshly or rush her. He simply offered presence, and sometimes presence is enough to crack open a closed heart. He noticed her backpack, the dirt on her knees, the way she flinched at sudden movements. Slowly, carefully, he understood that she had nowhere to go. When he learned her name, it felt like destiny pressing gently but firmly against his soul. As the hours passed, arrangements were made. Eliza was given food, warmth, and a place to rest, things she had been denied so suddenly that she had almost forgotten what they felt like. The man did not see charity as pity, he saw it as responsibility. Discovering that she was the daughter of the man who once saved him felt like a circle closing. He visited the house where she had lived, confronted the reality of her abandonment, and made a decision that would alter both their lives. Eliza moved into a world she could not have imagined, a home filled with light, quiet comfort, and safety. Yet wealth alone did not heal her wounds. She woke from nightmares reaching for a father who would never return. She flinched at raised voices, expecting rejection. The millionaire understood that healing required patience, not luxury. He became a steady presence, ensuring she attended school, received care, and most importantly, felt seen. Slowly, Eliza began to smile again, hesitant at first, like someone testing fragile ice. Time passed, seasons changed, and the frightened girl grew into a thoughtful young child who learned to trust again. She discovered talents she never knew she had: a love for drawing, for storytelling, for helping others. The man watched with quiet pride, never claiming ownership over her life, only guidance. He honored her father's memory not with words, but with actions, building a future rooted in compassion rather than control. News eventually reached the stepmother of Eliza's new life, of the man who had taken her in, of the comfort and opportunity now surrounding the child she had discarded. Regret, sharp and useless, followed. Attempts were made to reconnect, driven more by fear and self-interest than love. But Eliza had learned something powerful in her short life: that family is not defined by blood alone, but by who stands beside you when the world turns cold. She chose distance, not out of bitterness, but out of self-preservation. Years later, Eliza stood at a podium, addressing a room filled with people whose lives had been touched by hardship. She spoke of loss, of being abandoned, of the kindness that saved her when she was invisible. She did not name her stepmother, nor did she speak with anger. Instead, she spoke with gratitude, because gratitude had transformed her pain into purpose. The man who once arrived quietly in a black car sat in the audience, older now, his eyes wet with pride. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can continue to inspire. Just before the ending, we ask you from the heart to comment below and tell us what kindness means to you, or how this story made you feel. Eliza never forgot the night she was left alone after her father's funeral, but she no longer defined herself by that abandonment. Instead, she became proof that even in the darkest moments, life can change through unexpected compassion. A single act of kindness had rewritten her story, reminding everyone who heard it that no child should ever be invisible, and no broken beginning is beyond redemption.